together in a mini cloud, if you will.
In private cloud?
It would be your own on-prem private cloud. Now, we have customers that are consuming this because we sell this solution to service providers. So you guys may have customers that you'll go to Rackspace, or you'll go to any of the major service providers like AT&T or Verizon. They're leveraging NetApp technology on the back end to deliver that for their customers. They're doing that either with the SolidFire. I came from the SolidFire division. They're doing it with SolidFire. They could be doing it with core NetApp products, or they could be doing it with Hyperconverged. Not that many are doing it with Hyperconverged right now because this product just launched for us at NetApp about 6 months ago. So this product was built off of the Element OS operating system, which came from the SolidFire acquisition.
I'd like to see some of the slides.
Yeah,
and then we'll stop you when.
Okay. Perfect. So George Kurian is NetApp's current CEO. I think he's done a really good job of transforming who NetApp is today. NetApp's been around for 25 years and was primarily known as a file type storage operating system, and they've got their ONTAP, which is kind of the bread and butter. But what I think they've done a really good job of over the past several years is buying organizations and building a portfolio, so competing with a Dell EMC, if you will. So we've got block and file, we've got object storage, and one of the things that we've done a really good job of that Mark highlighted is NetApp has pivoted and really built our solutions around helping organizations that don't know what their cloud strategy is. I mean, realistically, I'll go into any customer, finance, media, it doesn't matter. You've got different divisions that are doing things in the cloud, others that say they'll never go to the cloud. So what we've done is we've built a portfolio around allowing our customers the ability to move the data from cloud to cloud, from cloud to prem, maybe even to an Equinix data center. And we do that all through software. So again, here, whether it's built on next-gen technology, whether it's in the enterprise, whether it's going to public, private, or hybrid cloud, we have the software, which is our SnapMirror technology, that allows us the ability to move data from array to array if it's running on any of the NetApp software.
Basically, you're syncing the data between the different sites. Is that what the technology is all about?
And it doesn't matter whether it's block or object or file with the Snap technology.
Could you mind defining what you mean by files, obviously? Block versus object, what's the difference?
Yeah, so object is more blob-based. Block is going to be your traditional databases, primary applications, typically running over a fiber channel. Now that's moving a little bit more to iSCSI. Most of your traditional fiber channel customers are still down that fiber path. And you guys had a meeting from a couple object storage players recently. Is that true?
Yes.
Yeah. So, object is just giving that ability to, again, from my perspective, because I worked at EMC and I actually competed with our object division at EMC, that was really a lower cost than file storage, and that's what people were looking to do.
Now, that would be basically the same thing as VMware or Hypervisor being able to move an application from one server on the SAN to another on the fly.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Correct. So, speaking specifically to HCI, the reason that I have Element OS over here is because this is the operating system, not ONTAP, which was traditional from NetApp's early days in 1992, that we bought 2 years ago. And this runs the all-flash appliance from SolidFire. It runs a FlexPod, so if you guys are familiar with BCE, VMware, Cisco, and EMC. Cisco has a similar relationship with NetApp where you can buy your UCS, your networking, and then your storage from NetApp. And then we also have what we'll talk about today, which is the HCI offering. Now, I forget your name, Jeff. So you talked about Nutanix, right?
Right, I have that, I deployed it on the Lenovo platform
Okay.
for their partners.
So Hyperconverged is interesting. I've competed with them for almost 4 years now. What Nutanix and SimpliVity have done a really, really good job of is they've gone into organizations and they've found people on the edge. They could be DevOps teams, they could be VMware admins, they could be cloud architects, and they've gone in and they've said, hey, you don't want to put your data up in Amazon because of these reasons. I can sell you this small array that has compute, networking, and storage, and you can start running your little mini projects, and guess what? Your storage administrators don't have to touch it. When I go into large enterprises, a lot of these organizations have business units out the wazoo that have budgets, and they're buying these arrays. Where NetApp came a little bit late to the market, where we're going is we're still selling to those buyers, but we're talking about being able to build a hyper-converged solution that truly scales. And I'll talk a little bit about how we're different from Nutanix from that scalability standpoint as we move through. So we've obviously moved to a highly virtualized environment right now. If I go into an enterprise customer, 90 to 100% of their environment is virtualized. Sometimes you still have some servers in there, but for the most part, it's all running on VM, KVM, Azure, you name it. And really, where we're seeing organizations moving to is how do we provision storage in an automated fashion and not having to do it the old school ways. And that's essentially what we're bringing to the table with the hyperconverged. So now, imagine instead of going in and spending a couple days standing up your storage, standing up your servers, your networking, configuring everything, you plug these arrays in, and in 45 minutes, you've got access and can start running workloads and managing all through vCenter. Never having to go in and learn the Nutanix UI or the SimpliVity UI, or let me go to a week-long ONTAP training, or let me go to a week-long Isilon training. Really, we're building the solutions around what people are familiar with. They want to understand one platform, that's VMware. Now, we are having customers that want us to be able to deploy on KVM or on Hyper-V, and we can run those today. But as I get into the presentation on NetApp, the product that we support is VMware out of the box on the deployment engine, and that's what only takes 45 minutes to get up and running.
So you have to spend oodles of time configuring VMware in order to get NetApp to do what you want it to do?
No, in this case, if you have VMware currently running, there's about 40 inputs that you put in here, and it's going to connect right into your vCenter environment, or you can stand up a new vCenter that's running on it. And I will, what I will do as a follow-up, Mark, just keep me honest, and if you want to send me an email, I have a couple really good videos that we have posted on YouTube that show how this works, how quick and easy it is. Where I was going to go here is, if you talk with any of the analysts, whether it's Gartner or IDC, again, I mentioned this earlier, 70% of storage provisioning and management are really where customers are wanting to go in the year, in a couple years, versus, everything kind of today is really still done manually. One of the interesting things that Gartner came out and said as well was they asked, 300 customers, how much of your data is in Amazon? And they said, all of it was in there. And they said, well, when you bring it back, or have you brought it back? And they said, yes. They said, what did you miss about having it be up there? And it was all that automation that Amazon does provide. So for those folks that are going in there, right, they make it easy to consume and use, but what are those cost structures? So this hyper-converged platform is bringing, again, that Amazon, that Microsoft, that Google look and feel on your own private cloud.
Sorry to interrupt, but it sounds like with an automated feature for storage deployment. Have I got that right?
Yeah.
I understand what you're saying?
Yeah.
So I don't need to worry about provisioning, or I just say I provision a window and then it just takes care of it.
Yeah, you're going to provision. It's It's going to set everything up, and then you can carve out all your VMs and give it the performance characteristics that you want. How much storage, how much performance do you need once it's plugged into that vCenter?
But so here's the question. One of the major problems that we've identified, in overarching IT, is the fact that you have all this unused storage capacity, right?
Yeah.
You buy all this disk, you set it all up, and 90% of it sits there just to be available for tomorrow, and tomorrow never comes.
Yeah.
So a lot of companies, I think, are trying to do, and this is why I'm trying to understand if your product does this, is to have a shared storage pool, which can then be allocated on the fly to the needed application. Is that part of what the offering is here?
Yeah, it is.
That's
So
the idea, right?
Yeah, there's tools within the product offering that all come bundled together that give you the metrics. It's called Active IQ, so it keeps, you got 24 to 48 hours worth of statistics on the actual array, in the UI, or we keep 5 years worth of your data. So all the trending and analysis, how much storage is consumed, how much is used, what do our performance look like? So all of that is built in within the tool, and you have access to it. And I probably have a slide on that as well. So again, Jeff, first generation hyperconverged, as I mentioned, these organizations did a really good job going out, selling to the edge. They probably also sold to the storage teams as well, but where these products lacked was how do they scale? So they're really good at 10, 20, 30 terabytes. Again, I'm selling to enterprises, which might not necessarily be some of the markets you sell to, a little bit smaller scale, but we got customers that are 10 petabytes, 50 petabytes. Would I necessarily say that this is the right fit for 50 petabytes versus storage? Probably not, but it's going to have its use cases. So really where we've picked up on where some of the first generation HCI solutions have not met the mark is how do you guarantee performance? How do you provide the flexibility? And how do you do workload consolidation? So if I go up and I'm competing against Nutanix head-to-head today, it's harder for me on a net new account than it is on an existing account potentially looking for a refresh, because we can talk about these things. I think Nutanix has done a good job, just like EMC does, in terms of marketing and saying, we are the best HCI provider out there. So, why did NetApp choose SolidFire's operating system to build our HCI solution? Because we do things like guaranteeing performance, because we have metrics like Active IQ, which give you the insights into your data, to understand, all right, I've got a petabyte of storage, or I've got 50 terabytes of storage, but I'm only using 10. Why am I buying another array? I still have 40 terabytes here, but in the enterprise, that's happening all over the place, right? NetApp actually, and all the major storage providers have software that will discover that for you. It's amazing when I was at EMC, one major retailer in New England, how many VMAXs they bought, and they weren't being consumed. Not even close. A lot of storage, and they kept buying more and more. But part of what they needed to do is they couldn't move applications, other applications onto that array because there would be application contention or a noisy neighbor effect. So we're going to talk about how we guarantee performance, how we scale, and then what is automation. So one of the things that we did different from some of the other HCI solutions is when you buy an HCI box today from many of the other vendors, you're buying compute and storage together, and you have to buy it in that form factor. We're separating storage and compute. So we're going to be able to mix and match nodes. So let's say you have a highly compute workload today, you need 4 compute nodes and 4 storage nodes, and as you grow, you only need compute. Well, there's no tax within NetApp where you have to buy that storage. You can buy just your compute modules alone. I mentioned vCenter is what we're coming out of the gate with in terms of the deployment engine. And then to the point that, Mark, you had talked about in terms of the integration with the cloud, all of these data points up here, so file service, object services, backup and recovery, through that Snap software, we can talk to all of our products in our NetApp family, and we can send that data up to the cloud. So we have customers right now that are buying ONTAP through Amazon Marketplace.
What, they're buying what, sir?
ONTAP, one of our software products.
Okay.
So we as sales reps could potentially get comped because someone who wants to do something in Amazon that we don't even talk to at CVS or we don't even talk to at Fidelity needs access to it. They've got it running up in the cloud. So it's a much cheaper license that they run up there. And if they wanted to move that down to on-prem, they can do it. Or if Amazon becomes too expensive and they want to move it to Google, they can just run an instance up in Google and move that data through Snap.
What version of these sent out?
I want to say it's 5.0 and higher.
Oh, so we have a choice, so it could be 6, 6.5,
Yeah.
6.7?
Is it 6.7 out right?
Yeah, it came out 2 weeks ago.
Okay.
Well, it did.
Yeah.
And it's JA.
Yeah. So how this is built is 2U chassis. We're looking at the back of the node right here. So you'll see on the top 2, I've got compute nodes. In the bottom 2, I have 2 storage nodes. From a configuration perspective, we always need 4 storage nodes to start. So that's the minimum configuration. Even if a customer only needed, 1 storage node, we need 4 to start. And we do that from a data protection perspective. If a node goes down, we want to make sure we have.
Can you just back up for a second?
Yep.
Define what's a compute node and what's a storage node, please?
Compute node is going to be super micro, basically out of the covers.
Mhm.
Storage node is going to be comprised of 6 SSDs.
Okay.
So that is what is
So
in that.
What I assume. So your compute nodes are where the work is done. Your storage nodes are where where your data and whatever is stored.
I haven't heard you talking about tier storage.
Mhm.
Do you provide like tier 1, tier 2, tier 3
Yeah.
based on the data and moving the data along when it's valuable or it's accessed commonly or what?
Yeah. Great question. I've got a slide that's going to come up in about 2 or 3. We talk about guaranteeing performance and giving different SLAs for different workloads. So the concept of tiering when I was at EMC is, hey, we want our really hot data to be on SSDs and some of our other data can be on spinning disk. And then there's a lot of maneuvering that you have to do. Do you move your hot data down or cold data up? So you really have to be a storage manager to do that. And we make it a lot easier with what we do with quality of service and guaranteeing that performance. There's not a magic button that says, hey, this application's hot, we're automatically gonna move it up, but you'll have the access and the insights through that Active IQ tool to see how that workload has been doing over time. And there's also a min-max and burst setting, which I'll show you, which give that application room to run if it does start hitting a peak and it needs more. You have another question?
Yeah, what I'm used to is they work along 3 fabrics: the compute, the storage, and also the memory.
Mm-hmm.
And you haven't mentioned that at all. I mean, I assume you're not going to have a memory node, but
Here we go. Here's your compute slide right here. So you can mix and match compute and storage, right? So we have different compute sizes. So small, what we would consider 16 cores and 384 gig of memory. 24
That's
core,
small.
512,
oh, you need a lot of RAM.
right? And 36 core and 768. So again, the minimum config on our compute is we need at least 2 of these. Most of our customers are going to do 3, but the minimum would be 2.
So you combine compute and memory, do you still have them fabric? Or?
Yeah, so these are going to come together. It's not like you can't say I want, if you want a small compute node, it is 16 core and 384 gig of memory. You can't say, well, I need 16 core and I need 786. Right now, that's just kind of how we're building it. Over time, that may change. but in version 1, this is out of the gate what we're offering. All over 10 gig iSCSI, actually we offer 25 gig here as well, and that is starting to grow. I'm seeing customers ask for 40, 100, etc. But that's what's in version 1.
So practically, like on a small, you might want to have 2 to 3 VMs running, and then you have obviously increased with the increased number of cores. Is that a safe assumption? I guess I'm kind of asking, how do you right size the compute node to the VMs you want to run?
Great question. Depends on, yeah.
Made you think at least. All right, good.
I mean, a lot of the customers that I talk to right now, they have a VDI project that they're looking to roll out, or there might be, they have a DevOps product where they need compute and storage together. So it really depends. A lot of times they have data that they'll send to us and we can start to do the analysis with them. It really does depend.
Do you have an overhead that slices part of it out for like they have their CVM, the controller VM?
Yeah.
Do you have that on yours?
I've got a slide I'll show you in a little bit. Yeah. We don't have to worry about that, the controller VM. So like with Nutanix Config,
Right.
they're going to have to account for more of that because of the controller VM.
Right.
But because of how we distribute everything, that's not a problem for our configuration.
So you say at least 2 compute nodes,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah. You want me to go back?
And,
Please.
yeah, and if you're VMware based, so the ESXi runs on each of the compute
Yeah.
nodes?
Take a picture of it.
So what will happen is
Seriously, yeah, take a
out of
picture.
the box,
I do that all the time.
out of the box we have 60-day license that customers will have for VMware.
Right.
They're responsible to understand, do they have an ELA with VMware right now where they already have the licenses, or they need to do a true up? So 60 days and they can go for that.
Read the key off the Office 16.
So it's like a test version.
Yeah.
Standard.
Yeah.
That's come standard with VMware. That's what you get.
Yeah. So Jeff, the other thing we don't really touch the low end of what Nutanix would do because they can offer a hybrid of flash and spinning disk.
Right.
So I've been in deals before where, street price, they're selling stuff at like 30, 40K for a starter config.
Right.
Our street price is going to be higher. It's about 90 because we're all SSD.
Oh, okay, really?
So here's the storage component, right? So from a storage perspective, we have 6 480 gig SSDs on the small, 6 960s, and 6 1.92 terabyte SSDs. And there were a couple questions around tiering and guaranteeing performance. So one of these small is capable of 50,000 controllable IOPS. So our starter config is 200,000 controllable IOPS. That's how we do workload consolidation, by guaranteeing those IOPS. When we came out of the gate, SolidFire, we sold to all of the big service providers because if I'm Staples and I have my production Oracle database that I need to make sure is running all the time, well, SunGard can guarantee, they're going to pay a little bit of a premium. They can guarantee that that database is going to get 15,000 IOPS all the time and it's never going to go down. So that's why they kind of moved to SolidFire in the back end. So Dave Wright was the founder of SolidFire, still part of NetApp, and this was the problem that he was trying to solve: is how do we eliminate the noisy neighbor? VDI boot storm. Everyone comes in the morning, boom, that kicks off, and then everyone else, what happens to the database job that was running? What happens to your VMs, right? These applications that would run on traditional storage arrays have this problem because we're not segregating. How can we live together nicely in our own swim lanes? So what we do is, this doesn't really show it, all of it, but so here's a Mongo production database. 4K IOPS, the minimum is 10,000. We have max at 35 and a burst at 40,000. The minimum is what puts SolidFire and NetApp on the map in terms of how we can compete against all those other players. So what this is saying is, regardless of what happens, we can have drive failures, we can have node failures, we're going to guarantee that this Mongo database is always going to get 10,000 IOPS. Always. if it does go up, if it spikes, we've got the ability to go up to a max and a burst. That burst is like 60 seconds. It's like a credit. So you could go up to that point. Now, you can also set alerts as the administrator of the system to know, hey, I got a couple emails today that this production database actually needs more than 10,000. So you can go in there and change that on the fly. So you can do that on the UI, or you can do that in vCenter. Customers that I have in Boston today that are running on this technology will borrow IOPS at the end of the month for some of their database jobs, get those all done in 2 to 3 hours versus the 8 it was taking. And then back in the morning, they have a script that reverts back to normal business operations.
But doesn't that imply the potential of oversubscribing? That if all of your processes hit their max at the same time, I mean, your hardware's got a limit.
Yeah, so that we guarantee 50,000. These things are capable of probably 75. So
So you're not oversubscribing.
No. And we've got thousands of customers worldwide that can attest to this. So when you can provide true SLAs, true quality of service, now we have the Mongo workload, which has a higher minimum IOP, or actually that's a lower than SQL, and then here's your VDI.
So did you say you could set up a schedule so that if you know what you're thinking, so that, Monday morning,
Yeah.
I want higher IOPS because everybody's starting up.
Yeah.
So I can schedule boom.
Yeah.
But then, the rest of the week I can lower it a little bit.
Yeah.
And at the end of the week, everyone finishes their project. And you can set that to happen every week automatically.
Absolutely. Yeah. Just all in scripting. So SolidFire was built around having a 100% REST-based API. So we've got hooks into, I put containers and OpenStack up here. So some of the largest OpenStack deployments are running SolidFire in the back end because we have all the integrations. We got a lot of SDKs out there. So, ActionScript, PowerShell, you name it. We've got folks that are leveraging our storage array that have tool sets that we have, built these SDKs that make their jobs and lives easier to do that.
Will your user interface, will you be able to program this with your user interface as well?
You can actually, there's a drop down up on the main UI where you can select show me the scripts. It has everything in there. So everything that we do from a UI perspective, API perspective is fully exposed. And then we have a GitHub site for all of those other SDKs that people can have access to. So a full library of them. So growing in an enterprise capacity, right? So start with 4, that's our minimum configuration. And a lot of when I go into customers, when I was at EMC, we'd go into a customer, you talk about all this storage that wasn't used, right? You sell a VMAX and you say, hey, we need this much storage today, but in 3 years we think it's gonna be this. And it never grows to that. So how much did you overspend on that array? Or you bought this and it grew way faster, now you're gonna upgrade to a larger controller head and it costs a lot more money. We say, start small and grow how you need to. Again, you can grow your storage and your compute completely independently. You're not having to buy them together. So you're not paying a tax of, all right, well, my customer's happy and we need more compute, but now I need another 30 grand, but they don't need that storage. Why am I buying that? We can completely separate that. And I'll show a slide. I think this slide demonstrates it. So this is a small config, 4 storage nodes, 2 compute, and we're leaving those bays open. So those bays are open on purpose because what are your business requirements? What do you need? Okay, you need more compute, no problem. We're going to add that one at a time. So again, you can buy these and, it's a quarter of that 2U footprint. Buy another one. Move to your next 2U component. You're still compute heavy. You bought 2 more compute nodes. Those 2 are open. Now you need more storage.
How do the boxes connect together?
Just iSCSI, top of rack switch.
So that,
Yeah.
10 gig.
10 gig, 25 gig, yeah. Just communicates all through that switch up top.
Can you go back to the previous, one of the two previous slides?
Do you see storage increasing or needs increasing faster than compute or not?
Depends on the workload, depends on what the customer's looking to do, right? Every customer is different.
Yeah. And how about the upgrade and downtime? Is it seamless to upgrade
Yeah.
without having to shut down the whole thing?
So basically, how we do that is most of our customers just have support do it for them. So they put in a ticket, they say, hey, we want to upgrade from version 9 to version 10. Boom, we look at the system beforehand, make sure everything's up to date, and then we're going to do it. And we basically update it one node at a time. And it's rolling, and we can roll back if something happens. Customers can go ahead and do it. Again, this HCI, one of the things that a competitor like SimpliVity or now HPE or Nutanix will say if I'm going head to head is, well, NetApp HCI is 6 months out. Why would you go with that? And what I would say is we've been running Element OS operating system for 8 years. We've been around longer than you have. The only thing that's new in the NetApp stack is that deployment engine. Rolling out the vCenter in 45 minutes, that's what's new. Everything else that we do under the covers has been built in there. So migrations and upgrades, seamless.
So yeah, from an operations point of view, does that mean you're basically migrating the apps across nodes and then upgrading and migrating them back? Is that what you're talking about?
No, so the data, we're just going to upgrade node at a time. So we're going to say, these are all running version 8. Okay, we're going to take this node out. We're going to upgrade it to 9. Once that's done, check, boom, let's move to the next
What
one.
happens to the apps that are running on that unit while you're doing the upgrade?
So we have 2 copies of our data that is evenly dispersed throughout the array. So there's always going to be a copy of, if there's copy A here, copy B could be here. Copy, it's always
So
moving around.
both for compute and for storage, you're redundant in both, you say?
Yes. Well, for storage, definitely. Great question on the compute side because I haven't had a customer that's done that.
Haven't had a
Haven't had to do
customer
an upgrade.
that's done what? Sorry.
They haven't had to do a rolling upgrade yet because we're version 1,
Well,
right?
you're on ESX 6.5, you want to go to 6.7.
Yeah.
Don't you have to demotion everything off and then do the upgrade and then
Makes sense, right?
do the next
Sure.
node, then do the next node?
Migrate those.
I don't know. I don't want to try and answer that question for
So
you.
it's still not no downtime, but
So I'm sorry, Jeff.
I mean, I know, you have to move everything off
Yeah.
because it needs a reboot after it upgrades the
Okay.
operating system.
Yeah. So I'll take that as a action.
I think so, I
Okay.
think so.
Well, that's why
That's the way how
replication of
everybody does it.
how the apps make sense, right?
But they
Now,
don't, they're probably gonna be motion
two more
to the other
questions.
node,
Yeah.
That's what I'm thinking.
on the fly.
That's
What
what-
about a storage device dies
I would certainly want to know that as the
Swap
IT
it?
manager.
That's what they.
and then have the system
It's gonna
replace the
happen.
data from one of the other storage devices?
Death taxes, upgrades.
So just a node or a drive, right? In your example.
Cool,
Yeah.
it's cool.
So this one goes down.
Definitely.
Yep.
Basically,
Just being
what's
able
going to
to-
happen is we're gonna ship you a new
I
one.
don't have any clients who
Right.
spend this kind of money.
We're gonna
but
take that one
If you
out.
could, it's wonderful.
Oh, yeah.
We're gonna put the new one in,
Want to donate one to me?
and then all the data is just gonna migrate onto that.
So it's just
that
gonna
next
copy
one.
over from the,
Yeah. Because again, keep in mind, this node goes down,
I'd rather have
we still have the bits
right
on
now.
these other 3 nodes for that, because all the data's there.
is it hot swappable?
Cash flow stream.
What do you mean by hot swappable?
Flip a switch, pull something out of the receptacle and plug something else in.
Yeah,
And then flip the switch again
Yeah.
and you're back
I
up.
mean, if you think about a service provider, right, they're not taking outages to do migrations, to add nodes. So absolutely, you can do that real time and you're not gonna have disruption. So again, I'm speaking more on the storage side, but great question on the compute side. I'll have to ask on the VMware
This
side.
would make sense then.
Yeah.
Yeah, because it can only be running at one place.
Yeah.
This is one thing I've seen with banks, and it's really annoying. Oh, we're down for maintenance.
Yeah.
Well, there's enough technology out there that you can replicate your servers, so you take one, if you have to take them down for maintenance, you take one down, leave the others up, so that people can do the banking.
Yeah.
And then repeat the process with the other one.
Yep. So, from a compute perspective, anyone who's got existing compute over the 10 gig network can also go ahead and leverage the storage. So you've got additional capacity here that you want to leverage some storage, absolutely have at it. So we have customers that, whether it's VMware, it could be running OpenStack, anything with containers, Kubernetes, they can go right to that storage.
So how does the NetApp know the storage is in use?
How does the what?
So, because I'm kind of going back to that thought I had before, where you have this, you kind of want to avoid the provisioning trap, right? Again, where you're provisioning storage that's not being used.
Mm-hmm.
So how do you still manage that and yet let like a KVM have access to the storage? How does NetApp then know what storage is in use and not? Do you understand? I can see you thinking.
Yeah, I hear where you're coming from. I'll take that as an action item to get back to monitoring.
Yeah, it's just interesting. How does it know?
Nutanix has its own app that makes it look like a NAS drive.
Mm-hmm.
So it sets it aside, and just because it's got its own controller VM monitoring the storage, so it will set storage aside outside of itself, and it just marks it as in use.
Right. There's got to be something like that that's running its marketing in use.
Yeah, but so Inactive IQ, because I haven't seen this in the wild,
mm-hmm.
right? The customers that I have, again, even though we can do multiple applications, I can run an Oracle production database, Mongo database, and VDI all on this. What I'm seeing most of my customers who are deploying this now, it's all their VMs or their VDI. They haven't necessarily done this yet.
Right.
The concept is great,
right.
But I think in Active IQ, there's got to be a setting where it shows, hey, 20 terabytes is allocated from the Supermicro servers that we have in NetApp HCI. These 10 terabytes are coming from KVM.
Well, what VM or what operating system types does your hypervisor support? I'm assuming obviously Windows and Linux, and does it support any other operating systems as a VM? I'm not sure I got that out correctly. So, succinctly. Do you understand what I'm asking? I'm assuming you support under your hypervisor both Windows and Linux machines.
Yeah.
Is that correct?
Yeah, so I know from the SolidFire experience, we are not supporting AIX and Solaris.
Okay.
We are essentially Linux under the covers.
Okay.
FreeBSD.
Right. Okay.
Those are the only two I can think of right now that we don't support, and I don't know where they are on a roadmap.
So it would be no problem running, Red Hat or CentOS or FreeBSD or whatever underneath, or obviously any of the varieties of Windows.
Yeah. So the former project team lead for OpenStack is a developer on our team, and that's why the hooks into OpenStack are so good.
Okay.
Same with
Is your
Docker.
order connectivity iSCSI?
Yeah. Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
no
It's
fiber
just
channel,
no fiber channel.
no NFS,
Just iSCSI.
Question.
Is that better?
what?
Small
Doesn't matter.
Doesn't matter.
As long as it works.
compute and storage nodes.
And you mentioned 10 and 25.
How many
I don't know anything about that.
virtual nodes,
It's
work sessions can it support concurrent?
Oh, even at 10.
Either 22
Or
or
22.
22.
Trying to think of- We have a study that was put out by the evaluator group, and again, it's in a link. I'll see what they came out with. I don't know off the top of my head, but I'll get that for you as well.
It was fairly well outfitted server
For cost of
Do-
virtual system.
50, give or take.
Mhm.
That's with a hefty load of RAM, several good sized storage devices.
Yeah.
16 core
Oh, I bet.
unit.
Yeah. If I have time, I don't know if I have internet connection, but I'll try and pull up that evaluator group.
No?
So the overhead question was asked, right?
You don't have to with that here.
This is typical if you talk to a Nutanix or Simplicity, or even a VX Rail for that matter, right? A lot of those, we see 10 to 20, maybe even 30% overhead for that controller VM. What about if you needed to turn on dedupe or compression, right? That's going to take up more. So out of the box, we are offering dedupe compression and thin provisioning that is baked into our software, and it does not take any other additional hits as our competitors do.
And is it on the fly? So, I mean, the dedupe is on the fly, and
Yeah.
not at midnight or whatever?
Yeah. So this is another area where, if we're going head to head, I'll work with my SE and our competitive team just to try and point out, hey, go look at the config. They're having to add an awful lot more on the compute side just because of what they're dealing with here. Now, I will say, I don't know if it's out yet, but I have our local competitive guy. I know that Nutanix is trying to add a storage-only node.
They already have.
Yeah. So, but if you think
They've
about,
only done it on the micro, on the super micro. They haven't done it on
Okay.
Dell and Lenovo yet.
but if you think about that,
Right.
right? Hyperconverged was supposed to be made to be easy. Turn it on quickly, go ahead and carve up your VMs, boom, put your workloads on. Now you're going to create, and quite frankly, they're doing this because we've got the ability to sell storage and compute separately. Now you got to manage your data. Well, does the data sit on the storage node, or does it need to be over here on the compute node? So there's a little bit of data jockeying that you do in those scenarios. You can argue yes or no,
Yeah.
right? Depends on who you want to talk to. So here is, building a traditional HCI, everything, capacity, storage, compute, you're buying them all at the same time, right? And then in the NetApp world, you can kind of slice and dice because you're able to pick those separately. So I'm going to blow through a couple of these slides just from a time perspective, but Element OS and ESXi, vCenter plugin. This monitoring agent in the M node is basically that Active IQ that I was talking about, collecting all the data. A lot of our customers at NetApp like this because it's a secure tunnel into the environment. We know everything that's happened, so a lot of times if a customer calls in, if there is an outage or something went wrong, we know we don't have to have them pull logs or anything like that. We're directly in there. We can say, all right, you're running on this version to do the upgrade. Here's where we're going to go. But again, that keeps 5 years worth of your historical reporting. So hey, our SQL database at the end of every month is getting taxed out because it needs to do X, Y, Z. Let's run a script, give it more performance over the weekend to get those jobs done, and then revert it back at the end.
What about using this system for backing up? This system?
Yeah.
I know you said it's redundant right to storage devices, but what about using another array to back up the data?
Yeah, you can certainly do that. I think that's going to be more costly than if you did a backup to, and I've got customers that do that, right? They were looking at going from Element OS to Rackspace as their secondary copy.
Yep.
And their backup strategy was, hey, we're going to go from SolidFire to SolidFire. That's our backup strategy. That's what we want to do. I've got some customers that just do SolidFire, direct connection up to S3. So there's multiple ways you can do that, or you can back it up to, some of the other backup programs out there. Do they want to back it up to like Avamar or Data Domain? Do they want to back it up to AltaVault, which is a product that NetApp sells? They can certainly do that as well. They could back it up to a NetApp fast array. So I think the options are endless. Because again, all we're going to do is we're going to, in a solid fire to solid fire, it's either going to be async or synchronous replication. If it's solid fire to anything else, it's going to be, well, solid fire to S3, it's going to be the APIs. If it's solid fire to another NetApp array, it's our snap mirror, just the software technology, just snap it to the other array.
How many typical backups could medium-sized array hold? And I know that may be an unanswerable question.
I don't know.
But isn't Snap mirror replication? I mean, that's not a backup, that's replication.
Snap is just replicating from array to array.
Right.
Yeah.
And then
But I think what the question was, having a secondary copy, I guess technically is a backup, right?
Right, but that's a live copy,
Yeah.
but for historic data, for backup, we want to go back.
Yeah.
You know, a
So
week,
back
a
a
month,
month or
3 months,
something.
Yes.
whatever.
Well,
So-
you mean an archive?
So, I mean,
Snaps, right? We got snapshot technology,
Snapshot,
so you
or
can
you
snap
can use
them
a
for
Veeam
30.
or-
Yeah.
or something like that.
Veeam, Commvault, Datos.io. I mean, we've got integration with all those guys as well. Net backup. Again, it depends on who you're talking to and what they want from a backup strategy, right?
But one defining difference is whether or not it's just a copy of the data or you're depositing it in a place that you could actually spin it up
Mhm.
as an active VM if your primary cluster, if that's the right word to use, were
Yeah.
down.
Yeah,
I mean,
so,
that's one of the things we look at as a differentiator.
and that would be like active, right?
Right.
We call that Metro cluster and some of NetApp other products, but if you've got synchronous replication, we've got that, right? And then figure out what's your RTO, RPO, how do you want to do this, how do you do the changeover. There's a little bit of manual intervention that has to be
Yes,
done there,
right.
but
Here,
we've got the
yeah.
capability to do that. I've got a customer up in Maine and a customer out in Maynard that are leveraging our technology that same
But to
way.
me, that's the reason why you put extra money into that secondary,
Yeah.
so you have that ability.
Yeah.
It's a DR site, essentially.
All right, you mentioned Veeam, that brings up another question.
Mhm.
How much of any Russian connections do you have?
Veeam isn't Russian.
Yes, they are. I can send you the documentation. Along with Parallels, Kaspersky, and Acronis.
So I'm a bit confused about the storage concept.
I know. I'm looking
This
for the
this is looking more like the on-prem solutions.
Yeah.
But, so the only interaction you have with cloud, hybrid cloud, or is by API or Snapshot or Snap. whatever
Yeah,
you
so
call it.
it's all in software, right? So we've got some that's baked into APIs that we've developed with Amazon, and then others that we have built just within the NetApp data fabric. So through Snapshot technology, being able to transfer the data from any NetApp product internally or from any NetApp product up into the cloud. And I shouldn't say any because there's probably some products that have more integration than others. Like I talked about, some of the NetApp products you can buy in the marketplace today. SolidFire, Element OS you can't, but the core ONTAP product you can.
All right, so is there any Russian connection?
I don't know.
Any development assets? Obviously, you don't have your headquarters there, but any development assets?
The answer to that is yet.
Especially since one of your partners is Veeam.
So you are saying you are dealing with enterprise size companies. So what size of company specifically?
I mean, anywhere from 1,000-person law firms in Boston to, the large, whether it's State Street or Liberty, those are some of our customers.
Minimum storage?
What's that?
Minimum storage is what?
So the minimum config on this would be probably like 15 terabytes, right? So it does, Enterprise could be some incubator in Cambridge that's trying to build a new competing product to MongoDB or to NuoDB, right? They're trying to build something that would be an enterprise customer. It could be one of you guys trying to build something. You want to build you're trying to build out your own service provider. You got the money and the funding, you've got a data center that you want to put this up in, you could technically be a customer. I mean, like I said, the street price on this is probably in the 90 to 100K range for the smallest configuration, right? So would HCI be a target that you guys would want to do a 2-day training class and $125? No, it wouldn't be, right? Likely not. That's a big spend. But are there partners here that I can connect you with that have these in their lab that might want to work with you and leverage you, and you can go use their labs? Yeah, probably. So I'm kind of getting into the weeds right now, and we're running out of time. Let me just see if there's any other. Here's an Active IQ slide, which kind of gives you that data that we talked about. What our customers like about this is, hey, we're noticing in the next 6 months, based on data trending and how much you're writing, it looks like you're potentially going to be running out of storage. Maybe you need to reach out to your reseller. Maybe you need to reach out to your account rep and go ahead and maybe budget another node.
Can you go back to the previous slide?
See, when it's all done, he's going to send you the slide deck.
In Russian.
Just the slide
In
deck?
Russian. With Arabic subtitles. Farsi subtitles, sorry.
So let me just go through a couple of these, see if there's anything. So here's just an example of like an API. So when I competed against EMC, we'll call it 3 years ago at a retailer, they were trying to do stuff with OpenStack. I'm like, oh, whoa. They would have to go talk to the product management team and try and create something. And how many lines of code is it going to take to make that function work if it's not thought about first and completely baked in? And with us, in this slide that I showed you, this min, max, and burst setting doesn't show up really well right here, right? What is this, 12 lines of code to be able to create that? And this is exposed. So if you want to take this, cut it out, run it in a script, run it in PowerShell, boom, you've got it. Run it in Java, you've got it. And this will be my last slide for tonight, because I know we've only got about 5 minutes left, but this is the NetApp portfolio, right? So we've got object, we've got file, replication, we're missing a couple other, we don't have NetApp HCI, but we've got backup and recovery. We're a true portfolio company that offers more than just ONTAP, which NetApp was known for. Back in 2000s, instead of building Stellara at EMC, they really considered buying NetApp. They didn't, and it was kind of a little bit of a bane in their existence, because for the next 11 years, NetApp ate EMC's lunch on the file side until EMC bought Isilon, and that was more of a competitor to the ONTAP offering. So there were a couple questions that I will try and get back to the group, a couple videos that I'll send to you, Mark. I will PDF what I can that is non-Russian for the group.
Non-Arabic too.
Yeah. But what other questions do you guys have for me?
I know with some ONTAP files or whatever, they have some very, very good labs, that you could go through the whole installation process or whatever. Do you have these, online labs for this product as well? So you can sort of walk through the whole thing before you actually...
Great question. Let me find out for you. In full disclosure, even though I know all of the portfolio, I really focus on the cloud infrastructure products, which is Storage Grid and everything Element OS. So I'll talk with some of my SEs locally. We have an office in Waltham, the Clock Tower building right on 128. That's where we're out of.
Well, that's what I'm
Yeah. So I don't know if we still have that active lab. The other thing that we have is we've got offices, throughout the country and throughout the world, and especially Russia. So we have labs where sometimes customers will just go and hit those up, right? I can reserve a lab sometimes. So I'll find out what we have in terms of that.
I mean,
from an on-tap
like it used to
perspective.
be this My NetApp or whatever, you go into the training and
Yeah.
go into, pick the training that you want to
Yeah.
go through it.
I'm more familiar with it with our partner community, and like those reps and SCs will go through the training. I just don't know. I'll have to find that out.
Well, that's how I know.
Yeah. Okay. Any other questions?
Are you going towards object storage more now? Are you gearing towards object storage?
So I just ended my fiscal year. NetApp runs May 1 to April 30. This is a product in my portfolio. For the first 7 months, there was hardly any activity. And it wasn't for a lack of us evangelizing it, talking about it. But I will tell you, in the last 5 months, a lot of people are talking about it. So again, it just depends on every account I go into. Could be a new CIO, could be an old CIO. What's the charter? What are they looking to do this year? What's on their EVO program? Are they, did someone say object is hot again? It really does depend. What I like to say is, NetApp has done a really good job of not caring where your data lives today. We've got the tools for you, so help me understand what you're looking to do, and we can help talk with you about what products we think fit, and we'll go from there. I think a lot of people just view this as, potentially, maybe we're going to, instead of going to Iron Mountain for tape, let's do object for deep archival backup, right? But you think about the Apples, the Facebooks of the world. Yeah, they're building their own technology, but a lot of what they're doing, they got EMC and NetApp and those big data centers all over the world, right? I know for a fact one of the major service providers was using a cloud provider to back up all of Apple's photos. And Apple went to that service provider and said, it's too expensive. They went to the OEM, they ground down the OEM. OEM gave them a better price, but that service provider didn't necessarily give a lower price on top of what was given. So now they're looking for another object player to help do that. So that I will see. People who are looking, I think, at object are definitely in the larger arena. Let's call it 100 terabytes or more. But petabytes storage grid could be a really good target.
Great.
So. Awesome. Well, thanks everyone.
Thank you.